What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. I'm going to be showing my prospect fit in this video. I'll have the link to the fit that you can import in the description, but kind of just talk about a little bit what my daily driver kind of looks like right now. Now, I really like the expedition frigates because I just like, the kind of cloaky gameplay and all that stuff, and I do kind of run with crystals right now because it gives me a little bit of extra yield, but you can also run with like minor twos or whatever to bring the cost down and everything. But let's go ahead and jump into the fit here and check out what's going on here. So in the highs, obviously, you're going to be a covert ops cloak. This just allows you to cloak in place if you need to, or just bounce around nullsec or wherever and be kind of sneaky and all that. And then we're using the modulated deep core minor 2s, and this will allow us to use crystals on the prospect, which is great. I have complex asteroids loaded in here now. Type B2 is usually what I do on all of them because I like the lower cycle time. And this is a yield stick fit, so the lows are going to be all mining laser upgrade 2s just to get as much yield as possible here. And then on our mids, I'm just running a 1 MN afterburner 2 just for a little bit of propulsion there. I really don't ever have to use this, but it's nice to have just in case you want to like sig tank something or whatever. And then to make this fit work, we need the small processor overclocking unit 1. I have 2 of them in both the rig slots. This allows us to fit all of this yield up on here. And then in the cargo, I've got all the other crystal types. So actually, we're going to bring it down here so we can see better. I've got the abyssals, and then also the variegated. I got mercoxit and coherent, and then simple. And because you can just basically access anything, a lot of different ore types here in nullsec, so I try to carry them all with me. But like I said, if you wanted to not run crystals, you could just go minor 2s instead, and then you probably would be able to do something different with the rigs. These modulateds and all these mining laser upgrades tend to be pretty hefty on the CPU and all that. But I'm out here just mining some Zydrine ore out here. I've been kind of farming this stuff for the past few days with this ship, and works out really well. But it's cheap too. Like we're like 66 million right now was what it's showing us on the fit window here. But you can gate with this really easily. I do usually recommend people not necessarily gate in nullsec. It just it's where bad things can happen. I'm gonna go and pull this little fit window up. So just while we're sitting here talking about it, you can kind of see what's going on here. But like I said, this fit will be available. I'll send a link to Patreon. Well, there'll be a post for this video and fit there where you can just import this and save it and all that good stuff. I do highly recommend this. Now, in terms of like skills and everything you need to kind of like get the most out of this, obviously you need like your mining skills and stuff as high as possible. But really, it's very important that you have your expedition frigates at 5 because of how the roll bonus scales with this. So with your expedition frigate bonus per skill, that you get more mining yield, and you also get a reduction in signature radius, which is really nice as well too. You also want the mining frigate skill as high as possible. That also contributes to the yield and also the gas scoop. This prospect is really good for gas as well. Now your endurance is going to be like your ore ice. This is going to be ore gas. Another thing I usually bring out with me with this fit is a Sino. So if I need to like pop a Black Ops conduit for the rest of my tunes, I can swap one of these high slots out and do that. But depending on kind of the level of your operation, you might not need that, so I probably won't include it in the fit. But just letting you know, if you do plan on like conduit jump moving your mining guys around, then it is nice to have a covert Sino in the inventory to kind of swap into for this. Everything else, like that expeditionary frigate skill, you definitely want that as much as possible. And then for these crystals, you want all that stuff at 4 in order to use the type 2 crystals. I usually don't use type 1s at all. That could be a pretty massive train. So if you're not like crystal trained for all this stuff yet, it's probably a good idea just to run like minor 2s. It brings your cost down significantly and everything. But also you just want things like astrogeology at 5, your mining skills at 5, and all that stuff. And now, albeit it's not at the best yield like you would get with like a Hulk or any other like exhumer barge being boosted or whatever, but Relatively cheap. Something I use, daily. I've got like 4 of these or so in nullsec, and these guys are just kind of spread out, doing whatever they got to do. It takes about 10 minutes to fill up the prospect on this ore right here, which is pretty good. I would say this ship does probably about 20 million an hour without boost. Let's talk about strategy a little bit with this ship. Like I said, you can gate with this very easily. So what you do is whenever you come through a gate, when you go to align to your next, gate or wherever, automatically just hit that covert cloak. It keeps you concealed as much as possible. Now out here, when we're actually mining, we want to be as far away from zero as possible. Right here, this is the 0 marker. If neutral doesn't have this anomaly kind of bookmarked ahead of time, then they warp here to the anomaly. They're going to show up here at 0. So I try to be as far away from 0 as possible when I'm doing this. About 32 kilometers right now. And then also, I try to be at max range for the miners as well. So we get about 10-kilometer range here. And this rock that we're mining right now is at 9,700 meters. So we're right at the edge. And that's important because if we do have a neutral come into the system, we have nothing around us. And so we can essentially just hit cloak. It'll turn off our lasers automatically and it'll conceal us. Really nice to do. Neutral comes in, they, pass through, whatever, nothing to see, nothing to do. If, the system is clear again, then we just drop cloak. And then what I'll do is I'll normally hit F1, F2 until those miners are flashing there. Once I can target again, I'll just click on the rock. And then that'll automatically target and turn on those lasers, and we're back in business. That's really the best way to kind of go about doing that. Just overall, like mining, kind of like guides and like, best practices and stuff. I like having local right here. In nullsec, you don't necessarily need to be spamming D-scan like you would in highsec. We can just kind of chill out here. If anything, sus comes into local, then we can, cloak, and then we can start descanning to kind of figure out what the situation is. If it's like a blop ship, like something that can pop like a covert sino that we expect to get like Black Ops dropped on, I usually get out of dodge, right? But if it's like a Dora, somebody that's doing like combat sigs, they're doing exploration, chances are I'll just stay cloaked, wait for them to kind of do their business. And then there's also situations where it's like filaments or something. Somebody comes filaments in, there's nothing to see, they're waiting for their timer to be where they can filament out again, and we're just chilling. But what's really nice about this is like it allows me to, have a very sustainable mining ship that I have some control over, and that's really nice. Like I'm not handicapping myself with like a big, large, slow ship. Yield is nice, but also not having to like, replace ships and send them back out here and all that stuff is also really nice. That's been like my main focus most of the time these days. And plus, I just think the covert kind of like gameplay for mining is really nice anyway. The way that I'm doing industry now is I can actually buy a lot of the materials I need and still make a profit. So a lot of the mining I'm doing isn't necessarily because I want like high yield to like support that manufacturing. Anything I mine goes into it, but it's more or less, the just straight enjoyment of mining itself. But not a very complicated fit, cheap. It was probably, if I was going to recommend anything to anybody right now, like a good, all-around variety ship, this is it, right? I still do take out like the porpoise and like the Hulk sometimes, but I don't know. I've really gotten a lot of use out of kind of this setup and everything. About to fill up here for another trip. I probably need to do like 10 of these runs today just to like kind of, I've been like running low on Zydrine. I haven't imported any. So, and the reason I haven't really imported any is because we're full up now. The reason I haven't imported any is because we've had these anomalies pop in here in these systems that I'm frequenting. So normally when I'm done mining too, even if I'm going straight to station and there's no dangers, it's just a, kind of a habit, and I just cloak anyway and fly up in there and all of that. But there we go. That is how it goes. But I appreciate you guys for checking out the video. Let me know in the comments if you like the expedition frigates, if you're using them and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one.